members. Item 1, apologies for absence. Apologies have been received from Councillor Sarah Jane Page and Councillor Booth. Are there any other apologies? Yes, Councillor Goodin.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Substitute members. Councillor Ian Wilson is substituting for Councillor Booth and Councillor Linden is substituting for Councillor Page. Non-members attending. There are no non-members attending. Item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of September. Members, are these minutes agreed? Agreed, thank you. Item 4, to receive declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No one's indicating. Item 5, public questions on notice. There are no questions on notice have been received. Item 6, presentation from the community supermarket. Members, please give a warm welcome to Kerry Eves, who will now give a presentation on the community supermarket. Thank you, Kerry.
Hi, good evening, thank you, and thank you for having me this evening. First of all, I need to apologise for my colleague Peter Everett, who wasn't able to join me this evening, so it's all down to me. Sorry about that. So, we have started up a community supermarket called Revive, and just wanted to give you a little bit of information about it. So, get this to scroll up. So just a little bit about the background of it. First of all, what is a community supermarket? I understand you've got a lot of this information already. They're also known as food clubs, and they are community-led initiatives providing access to nutritious food for a fraction of the cost of the same food in a supermarket. We're aiming for it to be around about 30% cheaper than people in the community will be able to buy from a supermarket. It helps people to stretch their budget. So it's not just for people that are on benefits, but it's also for people that are working, but finding it difficult to make ends meet at the moment. So it's open to everybody. There's no criteria to be able to shop there. And we hope that it just becomes the next level on from a food bank. We know that more and more people are having to access food banks at the moment. Again, not just people on benefits, but people that are working. But often they don't get a choice in what food they have. They'll be presented with a bag of food, for which I'm sure they're very grateful, but may not particularly like all of that food. So we want to give back a little bit of dignity to people to be able to choose what food they would like to buy. And we hope that there would be less stigma attached to it. So we're looking to support people that are at risk of crisis, but not necessarily in crisis. That's what the food banks are for, and are doing an amazing job. Particularly in this area, we have Hope Works, we have the Hope Faith and Charity Food Bank as well, which is part of the Trussell Trust, and many other churches that have food banks. So we're not looking to replace them, but we do want to be able to offer food to people that are not yet in crisis, but are what we refer to as jams, just about managing. They create a sense of belonging as well. We want to create a community around it, not just to provide food. I'll talk about that in a second. And we also want to give additional support, not just be able to give people food, but we want to be able to help them to get out of the cycle that they find themselves in often. So just looking at a local context, again, I know that you have got these figures. 87,600 residents, living in 36,500 households across the Rochford district in 28 wards. 5 of those wards are within the top 40% most deprived in the country. 1 ward is in the top 20% in the country as well. As you can see, 18% of people in the Rochford district are living on low pay as well. And what we've noticed, it's not just about those that are struggling with finances, but it's being able to access public transport as well, which obviously is an added expense to them. It's not just the cost of the food, but it's the cost of the transport to be able to access that cheaper food. So this is part of why we wanted to address it. And also through the research that's been done, they have noted that the obesity rates for children and adults are higher than the national average in Rochford as well. So again, another area that we need to address. So our journey, this is the bit that I normally do, you'll probably be able to tell. So this is a picture of our local food share at Life Community Church, where we are based. So as we came out of COVID, we linked together with the Whittingham Mission, which is a food bank over in South Church. They had an abundance of food at the time. They were linked with Ocado, so all the food was Waitrose, Marks and Spencer's, you know, really good quality food, and they had so much they didn't know what to do with it. So we started to connect with them and start giving food out to families that we knew of personally that were in crisis. We did at the very beginning, we tried to link with the food provision at St Mark's Hall in Rochford, but it just didn't work logistically of when we could collect and when they could receive. So we started to give out bags of food individually to these different families. And that was going really well for a while, but over the last probably 6 months, that food has begun to diminish. They're not getting as much surplus food now for various reasons. And we found that we were struggling to give good, decent bags of food to people. We started adding from our funding, started adding meat to it because we weren't receiving meat anymore or fruit and vegetables. So it became quite a difficult job to do because it meant going and shopping for the meat, bringing it together. We would collect it, sort it out and deliver it. So it wasn't really a sustainable model and wasn't something that we wanted to continue long term. And we got thinking that there needed to be a better way of doing this. And I stumbled across an article that was about a scheme that was set up in the north of England called the Pantry and linked to the co-op. And I thought this seemed like a much better model. So I visited the community supermarket out in Langdon. I've since visited the one on Canvey, which is called Stuff on a Bus. They have a lovely big double-decker bus that they have developed to become a supermarket, and also the one over in Chelmsford. And we kind of took a little bit of each element to develop Revive. One of the things that really struck me when we were providing food for people, and I got to know some people in the local community in Rochford, was just the difference in price from what I was able to access in a supermarket and what they were able to access. So one story in particular, a young mum that I was helping that had a young baby and needed baby powder, milk powder, and I knew that I could go over to Lidl, and currently in Lidl you can buy a tub of Cow and Gate Stage 2 for £8.49. If they were to access the Jet Garage, which is their nearest shop, it would cost them £16.99 for the same product. And that really shocked me. So again, this was part of the motivation for getting a community supermarket together. So that's my the difference in prices of the milk. We also did at our church twice this year. We've done a project called Cooking on a Budget, where we provide a multi-cooker for families. We've had between 20 and 25 families each time. We have a chef that prepares a nutritious meal, and then at the end of it, we give them all of the ingredients that they need to take home and prepare the same meal. So that's a 6-week course. So I took one of the recipes that we used and went into Southend to price up this particular recipe. And I went to Sainsbury's in Southend, I went to Lidl, and then I went to Sainsbury's local in Rochford, the Jet Garage and the Co-op at Golden Cross, just to compare prices. And as you can see, there's quite a difference in pricing there. So I think the most expensive one, sorry, next page. So the most expensive one came up as, sorry. Yeah, Jet Garage was the most expensive. I was trying, left my card at home, sorry. So the cheapest was Lidl, which is it's not a surprise that that is the cheapest, and the most expensive was the Jet Garage. So this particular recipe that we were looking at was a pasta dish. So I also looked at how much it would cost to just buy a jar of pasta rather than make it from scratch, and it actually worked out more expensive, particularly if you could only shop in the Jet Garage at £10.23 for a bottle of pasta sauce, which really shocked me again. So we were trying to make it cheaper, and it actually works out about a third cheaper than what you could buy in the Jet Garage, is what we're aiming for at the community supermarket. And bearing in mind, you would also then have fruit and the vegetables left over to be able to make other dishes. So it was quite a difference. And even if you were able to access the cheaper food, you'd be adding on the bus fare to get there and back, which if it's only one of you, that would be £4 to get there and back. If you're a family of 4 and you have to take your children with you, that puts the price up again. So it's not just about how much the food costs, but it's about the access to the food as well. There's the breakdowns there. So the local proposal, what we're hoping to do with this provision is to become a mobile supermarket. So initially we will be looking to start in Rochford, which we actually did yesterday. We had our first community supermarket yesterday. And we will be opening once a week in Rochford. And then the idea would be to move on to other parts of the Rochford district. So within Rochford district, there are 3 areas of high deprivation. They are Rochford, Barling and Sutton, Foulness and Great Rakering are the 3 highest. But there are also other areas. There's Ashenden and Canewdon, Hawkwell South, Holbridge and Swain Park also have areas in them where it's difficult for those people to make ends meet. So although we're starting in Rochford, we would like to, as soon as we can, start moving out to these other areas. I think we'll be looking at Wakering as being the next place that we go to. We're starting with ambient and fresh produce. So yesterday we had tinned fruit and pasta and household goods, and we also had a limited amount of vegetables as well. But quite quickly we'd like to develop to be able to offer refrigerated food such as fresh milk, cheese, that kind of thing. And then we'd be looking to offer frozen produce in the future. So whilst we're there, it's what have I done there? As I said before, it's not just about offering food, but we also want to help people get out of this cycle, which means working in partnership with other agencies around us. So as well as having the supermarket, we would provide an area for people to have a drink, a hot drink, and just spend some time there. So it would act as well as a warm space in the winter. We want to then be able to signpost to local services and support through publicity and guidance to them. So we've spoken to a number of different agencies, for example, Citizens Advice Bureau, Employability, National Health Service. So we'd like them to come alongside us. So as people are sitting there having a cup of tea, they're able to talk to them about how they can help them, maybe with filling in benefit forms or helping with debt management, that kind of thing. We're looking to set up a local steering group because we recognise it's the people that actually live in these communities that know them the best. So we want to be able to link with those that know the people and know what they need. So the next steps, as I say, we opened yesterday. We had a really successful morning there. I've got hot off the press figures for that. We had 25 sales. I know some of the people that are here today were there yesterday. We had a number of people turned up. There was a lot of people in there. It was very crowded, and so some people felt a bit intimidated, and we'll come back next time. But from what we understand, to have 25 sales is quite good. We sold 380 items, so that's a positive. 50% of those households are households of 4 or more people. So you know, we were able to affect a number of people there. So as I say, it's only going to work if we work together. We need to find venues within these different places. We come from a church. We're not using our church building because it's quite out of the way, but we're hoping that in some of the areas that we go to be able to use church halls or community centres where hopefully they will also have some volunteers there. We're working together with RAVs to find volunteers, which would be great. And obviously we're going to need funding as we go along. We've been very fortunate so far to have funding from Essex County Council. We've also had some funding from Feeding Britain, and the Health and Wellbeing group have also given us some funding. Hawkwell Baptist have made a donation. So we have some funding coming in, but obviously that's going to run out as we go ahead. So we need more volunteers, we need more funding. The more that we can get in, the more that we'll be able to expand as quickly as possible. So I think that is about us. So here's our timeline. We're already partway through that. We've had our official launch yesterday. In January, we'll be opening at St Mark's again on the 14th, 21st and 28th of January. And then we will continue after that weekly. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Kerry. I did attend yesterday, and it seemed well received yesterday. Councillor Goodin, you have a question?
Yes, thank you for a very clear presentation, Kerry. Done really well there. Is it possible to, can you hear me okay, sorry, is it possible to share your slides, particularly with the Health and Wellbeing Board, because I know we've got partners on there, we've got quite a few, 150 or something partners on there. Some of them are also dealing with families that are, fuel bank referrals and Supermarket Plus. They're doing the similar things, so it'd be great to link up with those if they know what you're doing.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Councillor FD?
Thank you. If it comes down, what can we do to help? I'm mobile to Great Wakering. It's one of the places you said it's not doing too well at the moment. I'm also on the parish council. I'm also on Barling Parish Council and Rochford Parish Council, 3 worst places, but they're the best places to live. So I'm happy to liaise something with the parish councils due to come and see where we can go from there. There's halls I know in Great Wakering, which I've got good access to, which will probably help with. So I'll give you my card after and have a chat offline.
That would be great. Yeah, I mean, anybody that feels that they could be helpful on the steering group as well, that would be good. Obviously, as I say, the people that live in the community are the ones that know the community the best. So if we can link together, as I say, it will only work if we work together. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor McPherson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Excellent presentation, and thank you for what you're doing. I live in my ward, which is Great Wakering, Wakering's in the Foulness ward, basically, and also sit on Barling Parish Council. We actually fund a group called Cameo, and I would recommend that you come out and meet with those. They do the Warm Hub lunch, so you've got sort of ready-made group of people. Yeah. They also run one that's self-funded in Great Wakering as well. Over the years, as Councillor Gooding will know, we have a lot of families that receive support, and there was many a time when Councillor Gooding was dropping over boxes that we were giving out over the years over to many families. A lot of my families in need go to the Ark in Shoebury, which is a food bank. So it would be great if I could tie you in with Pamela there to work with, because you can share sort of the information and get the word out there. But absolutely anything I can do to help, I'm sure that we can definitely find places for you to deliver this. I'm also trustee with ATF. I don't know if you've heard about them, but they provide activities for families, especially those, as you say, in the JAM group and, for healthy living and everything. So wonderful. Thank you so much for coming along tonight.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, members? No? Well, thank you, Kerry, for your presentation. If you'd like to take your seat, or if you want to, by all means, don't feel that you have to stay. Yes, okay. Thank you, Kerry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gooding.
Yeah, I was donated £100 today, which I've obviously taken a photo to give to show officers, but it's for the community, so I'm quite happy to donate it to the...
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
So, members, we'll go on to item 7, which is the committee work programme. We will now consider the work programme for the committee for the current municipal year. Ms Stretch, do you have anything to add to the report?
This is a new item going to every committee that just sets out the work programme for this year. Nothing specifically to add, but happy to take any questions.
Members, do we have any questions? No? Okay, members, then this report is for noting. Thank you. Item 8, we have the Chair's report. Everybody's been able to have a look at the report, I'm sure. We did have ask for some feedback on outside bodies. I'd just like, if it can be noted that we would like to send another email to Councillor Booth, who is on our representative for South Essex Children's Partnership, requesting an update on behalf of the committee if he's actually had any invites to the meetings, please. Members, any other questions? Yeah, Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman. Compliments to the Chairman and the officers that put together this report. It was really useful. Especially I found the embedded links. I don't know about other members, so I did click through and have a look. Just wanted to raise one question. When I went to look at the community safety meeting that was held on the 13th of November, I noticed there was no representation from Sanctuary Housing. Now, this worries me that they're not in attendance at these meetings. I think our officer's about to give me an update.
Up until the day they were due to attend, but gave their apologies just before the meeting. So there would have been a representative there, but they couldn't make it.
Yeah, they usually do attend. Councillor Reeves?
Thank you, Chair. I think there must have been a genuine reason, because I have been very impressed with the management changes that have happened over the last couple of years. I don't imagine that they would have done that willingly. There would have been a genuine reason for that. If you do need any information, I'm in regular contact with them as the board representative.
Yeah, Councillor McPherson.
If I could speak to you after this meeting, that would be handy. Thank you.
Does anyone have any? Oh, Councillor Reeves.
Just one question on the numbers in temporary accommodation. Do we have a rough idea how long temporary is these days? I know that's a difficult one to answer, but it would be a very interesting one for us to know. Thank you.
Lauren, would you like to, or Angela, answer that, please?
So it varies depending on the size. So obviously you've got different makeup of people in temporary accommodation, and it will vary on their setup. It's a lot shorter times than in a lot of places. So they are they're not in there forever, shall we say, but it is longer than we would like. We aren't talking weeks. But some of the temporary accommodation we have is self-contained. So it is effectively, it depends where you are and what type of accommodation that you're in. So usually if you're in our self-contained accommodation, you're generally going to wait for the housing register. So that's probably your likely outcome. For those that are in sort of bed and breakfast, if we have to use that, it's a very short wait. We're actually usually within a couple of weeks, and we're moving them back into our own temporary accommodation. I haven't to hand got the average waiting time across them all, but I can feed that back to this committee in the next report.
Thank you. Do members have any further questions on item 8? Okay, if we can move on to item 9 then. This is a consultation on allocations policy. We will now consider the report of the Director of Housing seeking approval to carry out a resident and stakeholder consultation on the review of the existing housing's allocations policy 2018. Lauren, Ms. Stretch, do you have anything to add to the report?
So just to briefly say, obviously their housing allocations policy was last fully reviewed in 2018. There's been some minor updates since then with legislation changes, but nothing that we've done ourselves. So it will be timely, obviously, to take a look at that, because the housing landscape has changed quite dramatically since 2018. But nothing specific to add, but obviously happy to take any questions.
Members, we have a question from Councillor FD.
I take it you're looking to, on 9.1, to introduce an additional band of emergency cases. We've got A and B at the moment, so what would be the difference between A, B and C, or whatever it's going to be?
So these are usually for cases that specifically kind of, there's quite a lot, because you've only got 2 bands, and there's quite a lot of people in each one. So actually even your waiting time in band A is quite significant for some people. These would only be cases where they physically can't return to their homes. So essentially they are otherwise rendered homeless. So for example, these would be people where unfortunately you get someone that's had an accident and they're in hospital. They may live up, like in a block of flats that doesn't have a lift, and they aren't able to walk anymore. Unfortunately, we've had people before that have become wheelchair bound. So this is basically an emergency category. At the moment, if we were dealing with those cases, we either have to make them go through the homeless route, which is sometimes quite traumatic, or we're having to constantly take cases outside and do kind of a delegated authority decision. So this would be a ban that goes above A, but is only for the most extreme of cases where you are physically basically unable to live in your home anymore.
Does that answer your question, Councillor
Yeah, I've got
FD?
one more.
Go on then.
Trouble scrolling. It was to do with the. There we go. 9.11. It's to do with the. I was quite surprised to see with the review income requirements currently blanket approaches quite a lot of money. Would we be looking at that? Because split between four, that's not quite so much money, but between one person, that's a lot of money, and I don't see why someone on that sort of money couldn't afford private rent or even a mortgage or buy a house outright. So will that be broken down more in the consultation question?
Yeah, so you've effectively hit the nail on the head about why we want to consult on this, because at the moment it's very kind of one-dimensional, and actually, like you said, for a larger, I mean, it's still a relatively high threshold anyway. If you consider that obviously with the aims of this report, the allocations policy is for those most in need. So obviously, if you are earning a significant amount of money, you have other options available to you. But obviously, the way it's worded at the moment is very one-dimensional. So that threshold for a single person is a lot different to a larger family. So that's kind of one of the items that we want to consult on, get the views with a view to changing that.
Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have any other questions? No? So if there are no further questions then, members, I will now move a motion that the recommendation at page 9.1, and I can read the recommendation for you, that the committee provides approval to carry out a consultation on the key proposed changes to the housing allocations policy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goodin, thank you. Members, we will now vote on the recommendation. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Yeah. That's unanimous. Thank you, members. So that motion has been carried. Item 10, fees and charges. We will now consider the report on the Interim Director, Communities and Health, seeking approval of the recommended amendments to the fees and charges which are to be incorporated into the budget setting process for 2025-26. Mr. Brace, do you have anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the charges before you this evening are for environmental health. Just a reminder of why so many of them are 0%. It's because we can only charge a figure that breaks us even on what we expend to deliver that service. So that work's been done. Our prices are holding as they were, but there are some charges which are in the list which can be put up by inflation, and the level that was set at the time of doing these was 2%. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brace. Do we have any questions, members? Yes, Councillor FD.
Sorry, just one. 10.6, where it refers to funeral administration. Yeah, I don't know if it's the same with district with parish. Parish charge treble if the people from out of district or out of parish. That we don't do that as districts.
Mr. Brace, can you answer that, please?
That's not the same funerals. That's a public health funeral where nobody can pay for the burial. So that is the fee.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Do we have any other questions, members? No? Well, I will then move the motion that the recommendation at page 10.1 of the report, which is we agree to the proposed charges for the 2025-26 in line with inflation, subject to the annual budget setting process, be approved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goodin. Members, we will now vote on the recommendation to agree the proposed changes. All those in favour? Oh, good, that's unanimous. No one against, no one abstained. Thank you, members. That motion has been carried. Item 11, the voluntary sector funding. We will now consider the report of the Interim Director for Community and Health seeking approval of the award of core funding to Citizens Advice Rayleigh and Rochford and Rayleigh and Rochford Association of Voluntary Services. Mr Brayshaw, Miss Anderson, do you have anything to add to the report?
No, everything's set out in the report, but I'm happy to take any questions from members.
Thank you. Do we have questions, Councillor Eaves?
Thank you. I'm a little bit puzzled because on the recommendation we're looking on R1 to approve the award of grant funding of 70 grand per year for the Citizens Advice, but in 2.6 rather, it's proposed that Rochford District Council fund Citizen Advice for 2025-26 to 70 grand. And the following explanation goes on to question how that is going to be made up in future years, which those two particular paragraphs seem to conflict with each other. I don't know if you can explain that for us, please.
I think initially we want to do a 3-year funding agreement with Citizens Advice just to provide some sustainability for funding. I think we just need to work it into the budget, so the caveat for all of this funding is part of the Council's budget setting process in February and March. So the recommendation today is to agree the funding of 70,000, but it also needs to be worked into the Council's budget setting for the overall budget setting, if that makes sense.
Thank you. So just to be clear on that then, what we're looking at is to agree 70,000 in principle and looking at bolstering that in future years by other funding, but still keeping that at the 70,000. I'm trying to get my head around the 2.6.
I think at the moment we've got other funding that we can potentially utilise, which is Homes for Ukraine funding and asylum funding that we could portion off to CAB to provide some support services in those areas. So again, there will be a paper coming back to this committee in March to look at some of that voluntary sector funding, but that's small grants. I think at the moment it's just the budgets that we know for next year, 25-26, just need to be confirmed as part of the budget setting in February, March,
So sorry to come back again, but does that mean then that R1 should be revised to be 25-26 budget, or the award for 25-26 rather than per annum for the next 3 years?
we can change that recommendation.
I think that would be clearer.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Any further questions?
No, that's it.
No?
Thank you.
No. Yeah, so what recommendation was that?
So that's R1.
Yeah.
So it's for 25-26.
Oh, right, okay. 25, 26.
So it's 26.
Okay, yeah, lovely. Okay, thank you. Okay, so members, do we have any more questions? Yes, Councillor FD? I did nearly forgot you. Nearly forgot you then.
Sorry. Got very slight non-pecuniary interest. My mum works as a volunteer for Southend CAB. So I'd just like to bring your attention, the council's not this year, but I know that Southend take a fair number of our residents because they find it very difficult to travel to Rochford and to Rayleigh, and they don't get funding for that. Now, I know that CAB take very careful, lots of information about the people they see, so it might be worth asking Southend how many of our residents they see and maybe look at giving them some funding in future years.
Yeah, I can liaise with Southend CAB and get that information as well for councillors.
Councillor McPherson? No? Okay. So members, oh yes, Councillor Marriott?
Just a minor point while we was looking at this, we found out that it's still on their website that they've got a facility in Holbridge. As far as I'm aware, that's no longer the case. Is it possible that we can liaise with CAB to find out if they've got any plans to visit Holbridge from time to time, because we've got a lot of vulnerable residents there that travelling would also be difficult for them.
Yeah, happy to pick that up with the CEO of CAB.
Councillor Linden, you have a question?
The additional £4,500 for RABs, could you just run through that again? Because it seems to be that Essex County Council have reduced, or they're not proposing to give the monies that they used to give, and Rochford District Council are now subsidising that by £4,500.
Thank you, Councillor. With the 4,500 is from existing budgets that we have. So there's an underspend in another area which are allocating to RAVs. So that is to support the Winter Warmth campaign for residents here. I think going forward with the funding, there is some other works that we're working with Active Essex around the kind of place-based working. So we're looking for funding for that for subsequent years beyond 25, 26.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any further questions? No. Okay. So, members, I will now move a motion that the recommendation on page 11.1 and 11.2 of the report be approved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goodin. Members, we will now take a vote on the recommendations. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Can you just clarify that we're actually going to be voting on the revised R1?
Yeah, I'm going to read them out. Okay, so we will now take a vote on the recommendations. Are you happy to take these on block if I reread recommendation 1 for you? So recommendation 1, to approve the award of grant funding of £70,000 per annum to Citizens Advice, Rochford and Rayleigh for 3 years. Well, not actually for 3 years, are we? So it's for 2025 to 2026. And recommendations 2, 3 and 4, would you like me to read those out as well, members? Or we're just happy to take a vote on all of those? So all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, members. That has been carried. Item 12, this is the exemption of the press and public.
Before you move on to that, would I be able to just...
Yeah, Councillor Goodin.
Yes. Thank you. I'd just like to thank everyone that has been on the working group before we go into P&C for your dedication and hard work in delivering the leisure contract for our residents. Your efforts mean more investment in our facilities, enhancing the services we offer and ensuring a better experience for all. I'm especially proud to highlight this includes the first ever fully accessible change in places toilet in our district. These facilities are designed for severely disabled individuals, offering essential equipment such as hoists, adult-sized changing benches and space for their carers. Additionally, the installation of the swim pod at Clements Hall will provide independent, comfortable access to the pool for those who need it, a significant step forward in making our facilities more inclusive. It wouldn't have been possible without all of your hard work. Thank you, and thanks to the officers for your contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Goodin. I completely agree with you there. So item 12, exemption of the press and public. We will now take a vote to agree that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining business on the grounds that the exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 would be disclosed. All those in favour?